Welcome to the Springfield Township Board of Trustees meeting. It is June 10th, 2014 at 5:30 p.m. Mr. Burning, can we please have the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Honolaw. Mr. Burning?
Present.
Ms. McFarland?
Present.
Mr. Honolaw?
Present.
All the trustees are present.
This evening we have two special events here at the beginning of our meeting, and we're proud to have with us Thomas Dieter Slayton for an Eagle Scout recognition, and we also have the William Schroyer family here from Schroyer's Nursery. And so if we can we go down front let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm getting ahead of myself. I've got these special things here. If everyone would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now if we would go down front, we have a presentation for Tom Slayton, and we'll start there.
Thomas Dieter Slayton's family has a strong heritage with the Scouts. Both he and his older brother Sam grew up in the program to obtain their Eagle Scout merit with their father, Dave Slayton, as troop leader. Tom will be entering his senior year at St. Xavier this fall and has been an honors student since enrolling at St. X. As a Scout, Tom has volunteered his time with Big Buddies at Roll Hill Academy and with the Special Olympics bowling team at Stone Lanes in Norwood. He is currently a senior patrol leader for Boy Scout Troop 682. Throughout the past year, Tom worked with the township to fulfill his Eagle Scout project requirements. Tom took on the difficult task of replacing the railing for the senior center deck. The railing was initially installed in 1995 with the building construction. It had served seniors in the community well by providing space to relax as a place to bring people together. The back deck is used as the main stage to community concerts and many wedding photographs. Although the deck has seen many good days, it is beginning to show a lot of wear and tear and the wood had rotted out in several areas. Tom raised 100% of the funds through donations and orchestrated a volunteer team to tear down the old and rebuild the new. Tom worked with the county on the permit procedures and the design and was challenged with logistical issues when it came to supplies and weather. We are extremely proud of what Tom has accomplished and will celebrate the upgrade with a community concert this Thursday. Tonight we recognize Tom for his accomplishments and congratulate him on his Eagle Scout merit.
It is our honor to present this achievement award, and also as you are now attaining and completing your Eagle Scout. So congratulations.
Thank you. All right, let's give one more round of Tom, actually I do have one more thing for you. We have a card here of appreciation signed by many of the people from the Senior Center for all the hard work you put on back there. Thank you. The next thing that we have this evening is something that's rather special, and we're this evening going to honor one of the oldest family businesses in Springfield Township, if not the oldest. The William Schroyer Nursery celebrates 60 years as a family business in Springfield Township. They started their business in 1954. And I have a proclamation here that I would like to read before I have, actually, why don't we have Bill, why don't you come on up here, and Lee, and you want to bring the whole family up here. because you're all a team that do it together. This is the whole team that keeps the Schroyer Nursery running. And Bill, would you introduce your family for the audience?
My wife, Lee Schroyer. Now, the next one, Lindy is the oldest daughter. Greg, oldest son. Behind him, Jeff. We don't know about him. And his wife, Kristen. And Ed Emmert, Cindy's husband.
All right, thank you. You got it, Bill. I'd like to read this proclamation, and it says, William Schroyer's Nursery celebrates 60 years as a family business in Springfield Township. Whereas William Schroyer Sr. purchased the property at 9711 Winton Road to begin a landscaping business with his son in 1954. And whereas William Schroyer Jr., Bill, built his first greenhouse in 1956 in order to begin growing and selling plant life. And whereas Bill raised a family of 7 to work at the family-run nursery, where each worked to pay his or her own way through college. And whereas in the 1970s, Schroyers began selling pumpkins and Christmas trees for the holidays. And whereas in 2004, Schroyers began buying and selling locally grown fruits and vegetables from farms and farmers and continues to do so till today. And whereas Schroyers expanded over the years and now operates 17 greenhouses in a year-round services in landscaping, lawn maintenance, residential snow removal, mulching, and fall and spring cleanups. And whereas the Schroyers family continues to walk to work and to operate a daily business in Springfield Township as they celebrate 60 years in business, now therefore, we, Mark Burning, myself, Gwen McFarland, trustees of the Springfield Township, Hamilton County, Ohio, do hereby proclaim to honor Bill Schroyer and his family on the W.H. Schroyer's Nursery 60th year anniversary. In Springfield Township, we encourage all citizens to recognize and to give honor to these, our sons and daughters who have brought great credit to themselves, their families, and their communities. Thank you very much, Bill, and everyone in the family. Let's have a round of applause. Bill, you want to give a speech? Well, we just want to say thank you so much. You're a great asset to the community. I know a lot of people look forward every spring and coming up there and buying all their plants, and is one of the oldest family-run businesses in the township. We just wanted to honor you this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wish Cindy would have been here.
Sure. Thank you very much for coming. That's correct. That's right. All the baskets that we see on Winton Road were created and done by the Schroyer family. Thank you.
Before we continue with our meeting this evening, I'd also like to recognize a special person in the audience, and he's a young man that's working on his communication badge with the Boy Scouts. Ostom, and can you pronounce your last name again? Grathwall. Grathwall. Congratulations, and his challenge tonight and his opportunity is to just see how a township council trustee meeting functions, and then he can earn his communication badge.
Very good. Thank you for being here. The next thing that we have on our agenda this evening is minutes for approval, and we have a March 11th, 2014 regular meeting and a March 26th, 2014 regular work session. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Next, Mr. Burning, do we have a fiscal officer's report?
Yes, what I have is I request a motion to approve receipts, warrants, payroll expenditures, update and current revenues, and reports for the period. Do I have that motion?
So moved. Seconded.
You guys are messing me up. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's approved, and I just want everyone to know that all financial reports are available for viewing at the administration offices during regular business hours weekly. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Burning. Next, moving on to departmental action and discussion items. Mr. Hennekamp, do we have a report?
I do, Mr. Honorlaw. A couple of appointments on our various boards, and I'm going to ask Chris to bring us up to date, both resignations and appointments on our Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you, Mr. Hennekamp. Yeah, this evening we had two resignations from our Board of Zoning Appeals, Tom Wagner and Dave Pittinger, both of whom actually moved out of the township and therefore, unfortunately, had to resign their positions with the Board of Zoning Appeals. But we do have two appointments to make in their absence. So we do have Beth Breda and Mike McClohay, both who have expressed interest in being part of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I would ask the board to make a motion to appoint Beth Breda to an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2015. And a motion to appoint Mike McClohay to an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2018.
Do we have a motion to appoint Beth Breda for the unexpired term ending 2015?
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
She's approved.
Next, we have a motion to appoint Mike McCullough for a unexpired term ending 2018.
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Also have the announced a resignation on our Arts and Enrichment Council. The resignation is from Dorothy Carter, Township employee. And Dorothy did notify me that due to her current indefinite leave of absence and current situation, she doesn't believe that she can continue to serve on the Arts and Enrichment Council. So like a motion to accept her resignation, and then also a motion to appoint Kim Cox, who will serve as our financial coordinator, and Kim would serve in that same capacity on the Arts and Enrichment. So in her capacity on the Arts and Enrichment Board, she's also the treasurer. So it makes sense to kind of appoint like with like.
So first, we have a motion to accept the resignation of Dorothy Carter.
So moved.
Seconded.
And that's for Arts and Enrichment.
Right.
Right.
For arts and
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resignation accepted.
Next, we have a motion to appoint Kim Cox as her replacement on the Arts and Enrichment Council.
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item I have is to add a approved caterer to our list for the back at the Grove, and this would be for Garnish Catering LLC, to be approved as meeting the approved caterer qualifications to serve as a caterer for Grove.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is approved. Motion is approved.
The last action item that I have is, this is generally the time of the year where we set our, the annual meeting for the tax budget. There is a public hearing that is required by law, by state law. Typically, we do this at our first meeting in July, which would be our July, I believe, 8th meeting. At this time, I think it might behoove us to move that back a few weeks and actually schedule that for the July, I believe it's the 23rd would be our work session date. And I guess the only question whether we want to do that at 4:30 or 5:30 typically, but it is a required public hearing.
Well, let's make sure that date is that Wednesday. Are we sure of the date?
It's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
I would say at 5:30.
I would suggest
so
that
it's
as
more
well.
likely for people to be able to get here. Yeah.
So I just seek a motion actually establishing that date that will allow us to advertise in time for that.
What's the
Do
date?
we have a motion?
What's the date?
23rd.
July 23rd at 5:30.
Okay, sorry, Joe.
Okay, do we have a motion to have the annual budget meeting July 23rd at 5:30?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the only other action I've got is, and I'll ask Chris maybe to touch on this one as well. We do have a resolution for a little later in the agenda. It's Resolution 47-214, and that resolution is to appoint members to the Township JEDS Board. Again, this is a required board. It's part of the statute when you create a JED, and the next step, once the JED has been passed, which has been the case here, then you actually make appointments to the JEDS Board. So, Chris, you want to maybe just bring us up to date on what that resolution is?
Yes. As Mr. Hennecamp indicated, the next step in the process after the JEDS was certified by the Board of Elections on the 21st of May is now to appoint the JEDS board members. The township appoints 3 members, and the city of Mount Healthy will appoint 3 members. And the township actually gets to name the chair of one of the 3 that the township appoints. In discussions with the board, it has been indicated that it is the board's desire to appoint myself, Dan Burning, and Jason Henry as the township's appointments to the JEDS board. Jason Henry, as you know, currently serves on our actual JED board that we have with the city of Mount Healthy and the Mount Healthy City School District on the one property on Struble Road. And in the resolution, it actually, as the board gets to name the chairperson, it's the board's pleasure to name myself as the chair of the JEDS board.
Okay.
We did receive some questions regarding this process, as well as a few other questions, and it may be a good opportunity now to address those. And I know Mr. Janning is in the audience tonight. He did send an email, and I just wanted to address his questions. He had very simply just asked if the target date for the withholdings to begin is still August 1st, and it is. And we, as we indicated last time, we will be getting information out to employers as soon as possible prior to that August 1st date. Additionally, he had asked regarding the JEDS board appointments. Obviously, we answered that. But as part of that question, he had asked if there were any specific qualifications to be named to the JEDS board. And in discussing that with Ms. Abrams and looking at, there are no statutorily required qualifications to be named to the JEDS board. The township may appoint anyone to that board at their discretion. So, and the resolution reflects that. Lastly, being that this is an August 1 starting date or implementation date for the JEDS tax, the income tax, regarding corporate income tax, he had asked whether there be a cutoff method used or corporations be allowed to allocate pre- and post-implementation income based on the number of days in a tax year. In discussing that with Mount Healthy, looking at their tax code, as well as discussing that with Rita, the net business profits will be prorated from the effective date of the JEDS tax. So in essence, businesses that follow a calendar year in determining profits will be able to allocate the income based on the days in the tax year. So for those corporations or businesses that actually follow some other fiscal year that doesn't follow a calendar year, they'll just have to file a short year this year, and then actually they wouldn't actually have to file then until obviously mid of whatever their fiscal year is, most likely be sometime mid-2015. But if they have a specific question that would be particular to their business or how they file based on their fiscal year, I would ask them to call me, and I'd put them in contact with Rita, or I may be able to answer that question myself. But I know there's some nuances depending on how particular businesses may file, but I would think most of those businesses actually probably follow a calendar year. So they would be able to essentially just allocate the income based on the number of days in the particular tax year. So,
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
One thing I would add is, and since there's been some questions on, and I think it came at the committee, there is the new JEDS law passed, and it does require a different type of JEDS committee be formed. That's not what we have to do because obviously we predate that law. So just so there's not confusion, the committee actually has some specific appointments that are more specific to like largest employers and things like that are on that committee. That's not what our particular JED is subject to. So just so there's not confusion on why we're appointing them and they're not the employers. Two different things that are going on for JEDs from this point on, but not that apply to ours. At our work session a few weeks back, we had some discussion regarding a newspaper article that was in the Inquirer regarding Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority, and there was some thought that CMHA was going to be closing some projects throughout the city. Specifically, I think there was a large one downtown, but more specific to our areas, Winton Terrace and Finlater Gardens. And I know Ms. McFarland attended the public hearing that took place, I think that day or the day before we had our work session, and they didn't address it in any way. They didn't talk it. They seem to have backed off of that position pretty significantly, at least publicly. But I think, we had some discussion at that meeting whether the board wanted us to draft a letter that we would send, probably not so much to CMHA because they're just following federal guidelines, but maybe to our congressmen, putting them on alert of basically reiterating what we have said many, many years ago and taking a position on the board and as staff in regards to vouchers. And, the idea of the voucher program was to disperse kind of the concentration of poverty and individuals on low incomes from all being congregated in one spot like Winton Terrace or Finlater Gardens or the various housing projects throughout the country. And unfortunately, what's happened with the voucher program, as we know, is that it's had in some cases the exact opposite effect, where you congregate voucher holders and they tend to go to a particular area because of the demographics or the housing stock that might be available to them or availability. And so at that time, and I won't read this whole letter that we prepared, and the board's had an opportunity to look at it, but it basically gets into this idea of creating some type of saturation thresholds, whether you do that by census block, whether you do that by square mile, whatever parameters could be used, but saying that once you've reached so many vouchers in any particular area, and this is not necessarily germane to one community over the other, but just any concentration of a Section 8, it's actually not a Section 8, but a housing voucher, that there be some sort of limitation on those, and then not be able to accept any more landlords willing to accept those vouchers once you've reached that. So that's kind of the gist of what this letter is, and we've prepared it with that in mind. So just bringing it up to see if the board, in fact, wants us to go ahead and send that off, as we discussed.
Well, I think it's, we've had this issue come up before, and I know there was a lot of discussion in the press that there were going to be large housing projects demolished here in Hamilton County, and we were concerned about what the effects might be on our community. I did see here, though, about a week ago, Mike, in the editorial section of the paper that CMHA is backing off of that, saying they're not going to demolish those projects. However, they did say that there is a goal of the federal government to disperse government-assisted housing throughout the communities. I think it's a good idea that we go on record and let our elected officials know our position. We've had lots of comment from people in the community that I think we have our fair share of vouchers and that type of thing, and that it should be more broadly dispersed across the entire county.
When you look at it, the letter's consistent with what their stated goals are, is to disperse it, so,
Right.
But because of the lack of some of these saturation thresholds, you're getting the exact opposite of what they state their goal is, which is actually happening in practice.
And, in our township, we have several communities, a lot of communities, and it's increasing even more where they are saturated. It's almost like it's back in the old days when they used to steer people to certain communities and avoid other communities. And it's been very detrimental to those communities that were really and are still great communities thriving, but they are just overwhelmed and saturated with the voucher system. And at some point, we have to push our legislative individuals to stop it and to spread it proportionally across the county. So I think it's good that we send the letter out just to give a heads up. And we all know many times it takes time to get a piece of legislation through, so we will work on that and keep everyone updated as to where we are in the process.
All right. Anything else, Mike?
The only other thing that I have is the personnel update, and then I'll turn things over to Kim and let her bring us up to date on community events and activities. But just a short report on personnel update, only activity in our service department, where we did hire 2 summer help, Lauren Bass, effective May 27th of 2014, and Joseph Durr, effective June the 2nd. 2014, and this is our temporary summer help. Kim, you want to bring us up to date on community events and programs?
Thank you. We have 4 events coming up for June and July. The next one is actually coming up on Thursday. We have our outdoor concert. We kind of taken a break from concerts in the past, but this is the Arts Council's big gift to the community. We don't have any sponsors for this one. It's completely funded through the Springfield Township Arts and Enrichment Council. We're starting the event at 6:15 with different games for the kids, and then we'll have the concert that begins at 7:00 p.m. The following week, on June 19th, we're having an afternoon event. It's called Puppets for Lunch, and it's sponsored through ArtsWave, and we have a madcap puppet show on the lawn. Families are invited to pack a picnic lunch and a blanket and enjoy the free puppet show. Afterwards, they can stay and make a craft and just really enjoy the outdoors that afternoon. On July 11th is our Touch a Truck event. This is always an extremely popular program. We bring in probably about 50 different trucks, and the kids just come in by the hundreds. That event goes from 11 to 1 on July 11th. And then the Arts and Enrichment Council is doing the second dinner theater of the year on July 25th, and that is going to be a mystery dinner, and it's called A Wedding to Die For, back at the Grove Banquet Hall.
Very good. Thank you, Kim. Very good. Next then, this evening, we have board resolutions. The first resolution that we have is resolution number 45, 2014, declaring nuisances pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 505.87 at various listed properties within Springfield Township and authorizing statutory actions necessary to abate the nuisances. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded?
Mr. Burning?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnlaw?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have resolution number 46, 2014, establishing assessment for abatement of nuisance and certifying same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second it?
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnlaw?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have Resolution 47, 2014, appointing members to the Springfield Township Joint Economic Development Zone 1 Board of Directors, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. And because we are doing this under home rule, we have a couple of motions we have to do here. The first motion we need is a motion to suspend the rules requiring two readings on two separate dates. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second it?
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnlaw?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Next, we have a motion for adoption of the resolution as an emergency measure.
So moved.
Second it?
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnlaw?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Finally, do we have a motion for adoption of the resolution?
So moved.
Second it?
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnlaw?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, under old business, do we have any old business before the board?
I have none.
I do not.
We already discussed the CMH, the metropolitan housing.
Yes.
So that was my old business.
Do we have any new business before the board this evening?
I do not.
Anyone? Okay. With that, then, we come to the portion of the meeting for citizens' participation. Anyone who is here this evening that would like to address the board, we would ask that you step up to the podium, you state your name and address, and address the board. I would also address that everyone else in the audience remain quiet so that we can pay respect to the person speaking and we can understand what they have to say. Yes, sir.
How everybody doing? My name is Joe Rivers. This is my wife, May, and that's my next door neighbor. We stay at 2068 Blue Hill Drive, and my other neighbor's at 2058 Blue Hill Drive. And I just got a concern about the neighborhood. I moved there in 1981. I've been there 33 years, and it was a pretty decent neighborhood when we first moved there. But the neighborhood has really just gone really bad. Few things I'm concerned with. I'm really concerned about the trash, all the trash in the neighborhood. Just ungodly amount of trash, old furniture, stuff like that be on the highway, on the streets. Trash cans, people kicks them over. Me, my wife, myself, we get out and turn them back over, stuff like that. People speed up and down the street. You're talking 40, 50 miles an hour. I see it all day long. They don't stop at stop signs, that kind of stuff. Another complaint I really have is people not cutting their grass. Just too many houses out there, people just not cutting their grass. They're not taking care of their property. It's just junk cars. The roads are in terrible shape. Matter of fact, my neighbor right here got 3 large potholes in front of his door right now. People come by. When they come by the street, they're speeding. They hit the rocks. They fly up. They break out windshields. He's got 2 broken windshields right now sitting in his driveway where the rocks fly up and hit his car. We reported it. Nothing hasn't been done yet. People's homes need repairing. Bands of kids just roving around and terrorizing other kids, terrorizing neighbors. I don't know if it's gang activity, but it just, and next thing I have is kids walking in the street and playing in the streets. You come down the street and try to go down the street and you about hit one. I about hit one the other day. He wouldn't even get out the road. He just dared me to hit him, more or less. That's my neighborhood. I've been there 33 years. I raised 2 kids there. And I don't want to move, because of that. I don't want nobody to run me away from my neighborhood. But I think, with the tax money that I pay and stuff, I really believe that we should see some of it, in the neighborhood. We don't see anything. We complain to the township about people cutting the grass. Houses just sitting there with broken windows and boarded up and that kind of stuff. We shouldn't have to look at that. I put a great deal of money in my home, to bring it up to the way it's supposed to look, and it don't do no good when you got the houses across the street that still just tore up and grass not being cut. I take it upon myself sometimes even go cut it for them, and I shouldn't have to do that when it's not my property. But that's a complaint I have, and this ain't my first time, but this is my first meeting, so that's why I come here, maybe get some kind of action or something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rivers. I am looking at our resolution tonight. We do have one property on your street, Blue Hill Drive, that has been cited for high grass, and we've actually declared a nuisance against them. We have to go through a statutory process. We will be sending a crew out to take care of that. I mean, a lot of what you talk about are kind of systemic things, it sounds like, with the kind of the community as a whole, some of which, the kids and, their behavior is probably beyond the control of this board. We do have, I've had some pictures of your street. I know your street needs repaired. It's on the list of streets that we are, it's certainly on our radar. It's on a list of streets that we're trying to come up with the money to repair. As you know, we tried to pass a road levy 3 times in the township. Each time it barely did not pass. So we have about $500,000 a year of money in our road district that goes strictly for road repairs. And we try and get grants. We try and borrow money. We've done a lot of different things to stretch those dollars. But quite frankly, we don't have enough money in the township to be able to pave all the streets. And then given all the state cuts that we've suffered here in the last couple of years, it's sort of made the situation, it hasn't made the situation better. With that said, we're going to keep looking for new ways to be more efficient, to come up with some different ideas on how we can make some of the streets in our township last longer with there's some new technology out for different kinds of treatments. Looks like your street, though, is probably more in the category of a full tear out and start over. But we'll do everything we can as we move forward. We were one of the first townships to have a property maintenance code, and while we have, we do cite people for not maintaining their houses. Some of that we've had to curtail due to lack of inspectors. We had to cut back our budget in the Development Services Department as far as the number of people we've had out to do that. However, we've taken some of those responsibilities and tried to move that into the police department, and we've had them acting, giving us reports as to where there's properties that need it. And certainly if there's a property on your street, property or properties that are, blighted, that have high weeds, that have significant problems, then please call us here at the township and make us aware of that, and we will look into it.
Mr. Honolulu, I would also like to indicate that is one residence on his street, but there are a total of 4 in Seven Hills that have that we acted upon tonight for them to get their property cleared up. So we have 4 in Seven Hills.
And we have over 2.
And on the other one, on the other resolution, we have 1. So 2, I'm sorry, 2. So there's a total of 6 homes, 6 properties that have been identified as we need to move forward on that process.
And I think one thing that the board did, if I may, and I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting and kind of explain the property maintenance in the nuisance process. One of the things that this board did, understanding the laborious process that the statute requires when we have to go on and cut grass or clean up junk and debris on a property, they instituted a repeat nuisance resolution that allows us now that at the beginning of the summer, if we know it's going to be a problem, and Mr. Wentz is in the audience, and he's familiar with this, we've talked about this over the years, that if a property is a repeat issue, and no one cuts the grass throughout the whole summer, we're able to go through the long process at the beginning of the year once. Then after that, it's considered a repeat nuisance, and therefore we only have to give 7-day notice. Then we can take care of it again instead of having to go through the 45, the 60-day process it takes initially. So we've shortened down the process to take care of some of these properties because of the concerns that you've addressed, that neighbors shouldn't have to go cut them, and you're right. So we've tried to expedite the process as much as possible within the law. And I would suggest at the beginning of the year, as soon as you know that's going to be an issue, call us. And we'll be able to start that process right away so that the remainder of the year that we can stay on top of it and not let it get so high. And as far as some of the other properties, like I said, we can talk about those. There's some other things we can do through the county now, land bank, to take some of these vacant houses if there are some vacant ones. So there's some pretty innovative things out there, and I'd like to talk to you maybe after the meeting, and we can talk about how we can work together to solve some of these issues, especially with the housing. So with the children and the speeding and things, I think those are issues that are going to continue, unfortunately. But
Yeah, Mr. Howell, I might add, just as it relates to the road condition issues, we have had a rash of calls on road condition throughout the township, not just in Seven Hills. And that's something John and I have been talking about a lot over the last month, and we'll continue to work on this. But John has just recently completed kind of a survey of all the township streets. And it's a survey that we try to simplify and just rate them into 3 categories: good, fair, or poor. And as you go through the map and just kind of glancing through this map, I just got it today from John. I know he's been working on it for a while. Certainly the number of poor are increasing, not surprisingly, with the limited amount of funds that we have. But that's something as you mentioned, we're looking for creative and innovative ways. One of the things that we hope, and quite possibly for that July 23rd budget hearing, I mean, the budget hearing is kind of a specific thing, but we thought that might be a good opportunity to update a lot of the things that we've been working on. Now that JEDS has passed, we've got a little bit more understanding of where our dollars are going to be over the next 5 years. And one of the things we wanted to do is not only update this, but also come up with a specific action plan for how we can address it. And you're absolutely right. The ones that are in poor condition are generally ones where there is no treatment available other than a full depth repair. It has to be ground out. You're looking at pretty much full curb and gutter replacement, storm sewer, the whole, pretty much the whole rebuild of that street. But just looking at Seven Hills, as you can see, about half, or probably a little bit more of half, is rated in good category. We have spent a significant amount of dollars in that neighborhood on road repairs over the last 5 or 6 years. There still are a good number of streets that are in the poor condition. So unfortunately in that neighborhood there's nothing in fair. It's either good or bad, and we just need the time to get to them. But just to give you an idea of some of the difficulty, we had some concerns about some streets on Ranch Hill, Montora, and Pectora, streets that we've had calls over the years on. And when you get these calls, there's no debate that these streets are in bad condition. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
residents aren't making this up. They're in horrible shape. But just to give you an idea, for 3 streets, you're talking about $1.3 million is the cost. And when you have a budget of $500,000 for road repairs, it doesn't take very long to be able to figure out how far you're going to get. And that's why we've been very successful with SCIP to take on these large type projects, but you can only do so much. This would take our entire yearly budget, even if we got a SCIP application, just on the match, just the piece that we would have to pay. So there's going to need to be another issue. We need to figure out some solutions. I think that is some of the things that we're looking at on some of the streets that are in fair condition. You can do less than a full depth repair, and that's what you alluded to earlier, where there's some new products out there where you're not going to, the condition of the road's not anywhere in the shape of Blue Hill or some of these others, but if you do something now, you might be able to get another 8, 10, 12 years out of that street and keep it in fair or good condition for a period of time. So we are aware of them. We're looking for all kinds of different ways to deal with it. Some of the general fund monies we do use as match for SCIP, and now that we know the JEDS has passed, that some of that money will be allocated toward capital as we go forward, and that's one of the things that we're hoping to give kind of a snapshot and maybe some preliminary recommendations of how we go forward. The other option, and what some communities have done, is they've done the assessment process. Some communities don't do it voluntarily, but they assess property owners for that particular street. I'm not saying that's something we want to do, but assessments can be done on a voluntary basis. And that was something that was identified in our neighborhood master plan, is that in certain instances where a neighborhood or neighbors want that street repaired, we can go through an assessment process to get that repaired, where they will pay that on their tax duplicate over a smaller, over a longer period of time. And the beauty of that is, if you look at the road levy, and one of the complaints we got from the road levy years ago was, well, if I vote this in, I know my street's not going to be done for 20 or 30 years because it's in good shape. And so you have a lot of streets in the township that are in good shape. The beauty of the assessment is, in some cases, it can be relatively the same amount that they would be paying for the road levy. The difference is they're guaranteed to get their street fixed. So these are things that we want to continue to explore. It's not the right solution for every street, but we're trying to find options for the different issues that we have, and at least identify those so we can start moving forward. But it is becoming quite the daunting task, as we well knew, just because of the amount of streets we have and the condition. When you're falling further and further behind each year, the streets aren't going to get better; they're going to get worse. And so, but that's one of the things that we are planning on address. And as we get these calls from neighbors who are very upset about the condition of your street, we fully understand it. I think any of us would be upset if that was our street and you'd want something to happen. It's just, we're pretty limited right now as to what our options are, but we're trying to put that game plan together.
And Mr. Hennicamp, one thing as well is the SCIP grant has become very competitive, because there are other communities throughout the county that some may not have a road levy as well, that are experiencing some of the same problems. So it's not just unique for Springfield Township, but it is unique for us as individuals who live here, because we don't like for our streets to look like Blue Hill. So we need to keep looking at opportunities where we can find resources and grants and et cetera to do the best that we can. I don't think we'll ever, I'm not going to say we will never, but I think it's, I don't see us in the future putting another road levy on the ballot, because we failed each time. And it was we kind of prepared our residents for the fact that if your street looks fine and 25 years from now it may not be, please support the road levy so that we can keep the community balanced. And we did a lot of education, but most of the voters spoke that they did not want to renew the road levy. That's all I have.
Thank you, Gwen. Well, and so I just want to say thank you, Mr. Rivers, for bringing these concerns to us. One of the things which we have done, and tell me if my memory's wrong here, but we've used community development grants in certain neighborhoods, including in Seven Hills, and I think that's helped.
It has, Mr. Harnell. I think with Blue Hill in particular, and Mr. Musselman and I ran into this, we actually applied for a community development block grant to resurface Blue Hill about 3 years ago, I think it was, John. The issue with Blue Hill, unfortunately, is the way that community development block grants work is that they work on a income eligibility basis for a particular census tract or block group that the U.S. Census Bureau designs, not the township. So why I'm bringing that up is because Blue Hill, being the southernmost street in that neighborhood, it actually, from a census tract standpoint, from U.S. Census Bureau, isn't part of the Seven Hills neighborhood. It actually brings in all the neighborhoods south of it. So unfortunately, it's not eligible for block grant because it brings in a demographic that has a higher income threshold in the south and isn't part of the Seven Hills neighborhood per se from a census standpoint. We tried to get block grant money for Blue Hill, and we're unsuccessful because of the way it's depicted in the Census Bureau.
I remember that. That's really the reason your street isn't paved right now. It's some something the federal government, the way they set up the census tracts.
The census tract didn't break it.
Right. Okay, well, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Mr. Wentz.
John Wentz, 1985 Roosevelt Avenue. We've lived there 53 years, and as Peg says, our next move is to the home, to the home. I affirm what Mr. Rivers said, because that was one of the points that I was going to make. You know, I know what the township is doing and how long it takes to get things done. I made a kind of survey of Seven Hills 4 weeks ago. There were 30 homes that needed grass cutting and turned them in. Cindy Thuman worked very closely with me. She did a wonderful job. A lot of the things that Mr. Rivers said is true with trash. We suffered through 12 weeks, and I saw them 2 or 3 times a day going in and out of Roosevelt Avenue, a couch and a chair. Rumpke is not going to pick it up. You can't pick it up because, you know, it has to go through the process. I understand that. But it just seems to me that something could be done within a reasonable time, that we don't have to look at trashed couches and chairs. And it's the broken window theory, because right down from Roosevelt appeared 5 mattresses, a couch, and a chair. Now they disappeared someplace along the line. I don't know how it did, but through Cindy, you know, she got in touch with the landlord, and he said, yeah, he's gonna gonna take care of it this weekend. You know, get a truck and take it. Well, this weekend stretched into 12 weeks and all that time. It was eventually, and I don't know who took care of it. I assume maybe probably the township after they went through the process. But everything, you know, I affirm everything that Mr. Rivers said, so I'm with that. So I had kind of my thunder taken by him, which was good. My other point, the thunder was taken by Mike with the CMHA. I was concerned, and other people were concerned, that when we heard about the Stanley Row high-rise being torn down, and the director of CMHA gave me the impression, hey, find your own place to live, because he had an open meeting and took 2 questions and shut down the meeting. That's scary to us and the township, because we do have our share of CMHA. So I'm just affirming what you people are doing and what Mr. Rivers said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wentz. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Rayvetta Bryant, live at 8965 Ebro. And I too can attest with the other 2 that was up here. We have the same problem there. My only suggestion is that when the property is vacant, if the owner could at least board the windows, keep it from looking so bad, and windows being broken out, and keeping children safe from not going in the homes when no one is there, or adults hovering in the house, that there can be some kind of ordinance that says that they have to be boarded until it is rented or sold or whatever. Ebro streets, it sounds like Seven Hills streets are worse than ours, but we do still have the same issue. But I do like to say that I have called several occasions about grass being cut, and you guys done a great job and act quickly. Those issues were taken care of very quickly, and I appreciate that you guys are working as hard as you are. in taking in on our requests, and so thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. If you do have, if there are vacant properties in your community you're aware of, it sounds like you're working with the township, but if there are vacant properties, please let us know, and we'll look into those to see if they're being properly maintained. Okay, Pastor Bailey.
David Bailey, pastor of St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, 9191 Daly Road. I had an interesting experience before I came to the meeting tonight. I was with one of my parishioners who has pretty severe Alzheimer's, and spent some time talking with his wife, who said, it's great that somebody can listen to us. And as I was walking out of the Alzheimer's Center, I ran into somebody I'd never met before who looked like she really needed to talk and just wanted to talk about her husband and things like that. And again, she said, it's great somebody listens to us. I've been coming to these meetings for over 10 years now, and one of the great things about small local government, like township government, is that anybody can come here and talk, and you listen. You listen and you respond. Sometimes it's a short response. Sometimes it's, let's tell you the history of how we fix roads in this part of the country. But you listen. And I just wanted to thank you that you provide the opportunity for anybody who wants to come up and talk, to compliment you, which I hope I'm doing right now, to critique you, which happens from time to time, to go full-blown unhappy. I cleaned that up quite a bit. And you listen. And the person who said that there was the press conference, he took 2 questions and said, this is over, or a meeting, this is over. You guys never cut off this meeting. I know, I've been here a really long time, a couple of times, so that everybody got to talk, and you listened, and you responded. And I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. We appreciate your comments, and I agree with you, David. I think small local governments, be they townships, villages, cities, whatever they are, there's a lot to be said for those versus big bureaucracies, big mega government. And it is important, and we take, as trustees, we take our role seriously. We're here as stewards for the community. We're trying to do what's best for the community, given the resources we have and given the wishes of our residents. And so we appreciate that very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? It appearing that there is not, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? And Mr. Hennenkamp, do we need any further executive session or anything? No, we do not. Well, on that happy note, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I second it, and then I just want to meet with Mr. Rivers' wife, because she had addressed some concerns with me earlier, so I want to meet with her individually, or he and she, doesn't matter.
All right, do we have a second? Did I hear a
Yeah,
second?
you had a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is
Meeting is
adjourned.
adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.